Tonight on Q2, breaking ground on the future of healthcare.
To have rooms that fit the times, that fit the technology that's available, it's going to be incredible.
St. Vincent's new hospital, which they hope will stand for decades, is now one step closer to reality. Plus, damage and destruction.
We worked so hard on this house. We put everything we had into this house.
A vengeful summer storm slammed Shepard, smashing windows, destroying siding, and leaving one family looking for a new place to live. The MTN 10 o'clock news starts right now.
From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 10 o'clock news.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Russ Riesinger. Tonight, the future of healthcare in the Magic City comes into focus. It's being called a once-in-a-generation project about to reshape the landscape here in Billings. Intermountain Health breaks ground on a brand new 14-story hospital, a full replacement of that current facility. As our David J. reports, it's a project that aims to provide high quality and efficient care for decades to come.
Pray for all who serve and are served within. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Bishop Michael Warfel performs the blessing for the new building 125 years after the Sisters of Charity of Leavenworth started St. Vincent Hospital in Billings.
Our Catholic identity is so important to what we do.
Lee Boyles is the Intermountain president for St. Vincent Regional Hospital and says the nearly $1 billion, 14-floor, 737-square-foot building will allow the doctors and nurses to do more than they can in the old building.
Practicing 21st century medicine in 100-year-old buildings is extremely hard. And so to have rooms that fit the times, that fit the technology that's available, it's going to be incredible.
The new hospital will be more than just a new building with new technology. They'll also try to work in some efficiencies that will help all the people working here, including nurses, as well as the patients.
We really are trying to emphasize on stage, off stage, and so our patients can be taken care of in privacy, transported in privacy, and that there's a nice welcoming environment for our guests as well.
Jenna Huck is St. Vincent's nursing director for adult inpatients and says nurses had a lot of input in designing where they work, and the result will allow them to easily transition between departments if necessary.
So the concept is to have universal rooms, and so every room is built the same, and so if we need a special equipment for an ICU patient, we can bring that in, but the setup is the same, the wall mounts are the same, and so any nurse can come to that room and really take care of that patient and know where everything is.
That just creates safety, it creates quality, it creates uniformity, it creates comfort for patients and families.
And they say there will be that same special St. Vincent feel when entering the new hospital.
The value we bring because of our Catholic roots and what the sisters have done and what they've instilled in us, it's very, very important.
Really working closely with our sisters and again understanding that this is a calling and that this is an opportunity to care for our community.
The plan is to open St. Vincent Intermountain Regional Hospital in 2029. In Billings, David J., MTN News.
Suspect is now in custody after fleeing from law enforcement in Stillwater County. Columbus police said on social media that incident began shortly after 1 this morning when officers tried to make a traffic stop on a black Cadillac. They say that driver then took off at a high rate of speed with officers giving chase. The vehicle then crashed in a field between Big Lake and Grass Lake Refuge, but the suspect was able to run away. Later this morning, law enforcement was able to capture that suspect. No other details on that crime have been released. This year, the Montana legislature made a big change to the state law that prohibits smoking in indoor facilities. That change expanded the law to include vaping. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian has more on the new law and what impact supporters believe it could have.
20 years ago, the Montana legislature passed the Clean Indoor Air Act, which said that indoor public spaces and workplaces had to be smoke-free. That was an adjustment for businesses at the time, and now they'll have to adjust again, as a new state law says that smoke-free also means vape-free.
We were excited to see the amount of support from legislators. I think that this is something they have been hearing about in their communities with people coming to them, principals and superintendents saying that they need help.
Senate Bill 390 changes the definition of smoking in the Clean Indoor Air Act, so it includes using an electronic smoking device like an e-cigarette or vape pen. It passed the House and Senate with bipartisan support, and Governor Greg Gianforte signed it into law last month. Jackie Simmons with the American Heart Association says advocates believe one of the biggest benefits will be in pushing back on what they call a youth vaping epidemic. A 2023 statewide survey found just under half of Montana high school students have reported using a vaping product.
E-cigarette use was already prohibited in Montana schools, but we think that this sends a clear message to the public and to young adults and teenagers that e-cigarettes are not safe. Unfortunately, we think that because they've been excluded from the act, people have mistakenly thought that this was a safe form of nicotine use, but what we know is nicotine in every form is addictive and is dangerous.
SB 390 came with an immediate effective date, and it's already being enforced. The Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services says any businesses found in violation will get an educational letter before they're penalized. While the law is going to mean changes, Simmons believes Montanans have gotten used to the Clean Indoor Air Act, and they'll get used to this adjustment too.
At the time, smoking was so normal that people couldn't really realize the benefits of having smoke-free restaurants, smoke-free bars. Now I think most of us can't imagine going back into a restaurant that smelled like cigarette smoke.
About 10 city and county governments in Montana had already taken local action to prohibit e-cigarettes in indoor spaces. In Helena, Jonathan Amberian, MTN News.
Many folks in the Shepard area still in cleanup mode after a severe storm rocked the community last evening. That damage is hard to miss. Shattered windows, shredded siding, and roofs stripped bare. But for one family with 2 young children, the storm didn't just rattle their home, it turned their world completely upside down. Our Charlie Kleps has this story of survival behind the wreckage.
In a matter of moments,
God, it happened so quick.
dark clouds covered the sky.
I didn't really know what was going to happen.
And as uncertainty filled Jordan Dalton's head, dangerously strong winds picked up speed.
I was just more scared, my daughter was with me, and last thing I want to happen is anything to my little girl.
It was at that moment that Dalton knew she needed to flee.
The wind started coming up pretty bad, so we rushed down to my grandma's house.
It was there that she took this video. What she didn't know was that it would be the last time she saw her house standing upright.
Not even 2 minutes later, the whole house just completely went.
This is the aftermath of that storm, where this home was ripped off of its foundation here and rolled 20 feet down the property. A devastating scene that feels impossible for Jordan and her husband Joe to stomach.
My heart and soul into this house, every penny I had for the last 3 years.
Their home, which was nearing completion after more than 2 years of construction, now flipped upside down, crushing one of their vehicles and destroying nearly all of their belongings inside.
We went so much into debt just to get this house livable, and now it's just all gone.
On Tuesday, the Daltons were left salvaging what they could.
Move that!
Searching through the scraps of what they hoped would be their forever home.
It's like opening a fresh wound. Every time you see something that you cherished completely demolished, it's just ripping off the scab all over again.
A nightmare reality for this family and many others.
Everybody lost stuff, and everybody's homes got damaged.
Now hoping for help on their emotional and uncertain road to recovery.
It's hard to ask people for help in a situation like this because everybody's going through something.
In Shepard, Charlie Kleps, MTN News.
And that's far from the only destruction left behind. Many properties in that area took a hit. Winds were relentless. Hail pounded with such force that windows exploded from homes and cars. That's the sounds of shattering glass as a calm night watching television quickly turned to disbelief for the Parman family.
I was having golf balls and ping pong balls bouncing off the couch, and it shredded all the Venetian blinds.
It was a similar story just down the road for Chuck and Luann Super. They've lived in Shepard for 4 decades, but they say they've never experienced a storm this fierce.
It was almost like a vacuum had broke, Kind of like, when you pop a cork on a champagne bottle or something. Just boom.
I don't even know how to describe what it sounded like. It was just loud and scary.
Well, now that these storms have finally left the area, is there some relief in sight? With a first look at the forecast, here's Chief Meteorologist Ed McIntosh.
Watching those videos of the storm, just almost overwhelming. But since Friday, been very busy. This is just the National Weather Service office in Billings, not counting Glasgow, Great Falls, Riverton, Wyoming, off in towards the Dakotas. 98 severe thunderstorm warnings were issued. That means storms capable of producing 58-mile-per-hour winds or 1-inch hail, 7 flash flood warnings, and 4 tornado warnings. The forecast coming up.
Billings At Home store, which is in the same complex as the former Costco on King Avenue, is now set to close its doors. The home decor and furniture retailer, with more than 200 locations across the United States, announced that they are filing for bankruptcy. As part of the restructuring agreement, they intend to eliminate $2 billion in debt and provide $200 million in capital to aid with the restructuring process. The Texas-based company's been struggling for months amid rising tariffs and entered a forbearance agreement with lenders after missing an interest payment on May 15th. And worries growing at the Montana Food Bank Network that program cuts could be coming by the state government. It all has to do with President Donald Trump's big beautiful bill, which would alter requirements for those receiving benefits. SNAP, or the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, gives people and families with limited income better access to food. The bill would require all of those under the age of 65 to report that they work, and any parent with a child over the age of 7 would have to report job status. The new legislation also proposes that states cover 75% of SNAP's costs. That's a 25% jump from the current cost-sharing plan. The Montana Food Bank Network says 80,000 Montanans currently utilize SNAP benefits. The U.S. Senate is making some key changes to the House's version of the big beautiful bill. The president wants that full package passed before the July 4th break.